Danny Murphy, Simon and myself are talking about what actually happened at Chelsea last night to bring them to the decision to say goodbye to Mauricio Pochettino. And what is next for Pochettino himself? talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, my colleague Alex Crook, brings us up to date. And also, how on earth did we get to this stage in the proceedings?
Well, Simon wasn't convinced yesterday when I suggested that Chelsea's end-of-season review was as much about whether Mauricio Pochettino wanted to work with the board as if they wanted to work with him. But that's exactly what transpired. I mentioned that Pochettino wanted a bigger say in recruitment and that he was also pushing against the potential sales of academy graduates Conor Gallagher and Trevor Chalobah. We'll keep an eye on their futures this summer. I'm told he was also unhappy that the performance review centred around negative data as opposed to Chelsea's impressive end to the season, which saw them gatecrash their way into the top six and a place in Europe. In terms of his future, Pochettino has supporters in Harry Kane and Eric Dyer within the Bayern Munich dressing room. We know that he was close to getting the Manchester United job before Eric Ten Hag as well. So it remains to be seen if Ineos may well revisit the club's interest in the Argentine. As for Chelsea, no immediate replacement lined up, but as they said in their statement, they are looking for a younger, up-and-coming coach. Kieran McKenna at Ipswich certainly ticks those boxes. Another potential name is Stuttgart's Sebastian Hoeneß, although I'm told from sources in Germany he's not particularly keen to make the move. Roberto De Zerbi is admired by Todd Boehly and is of course out of work, having left Brighton recently. Fascinating to see which direction Chelsea and Pochettino go in. Never a dull moment at Stamford Bridge.
Alex Crook has been right across this story from the start to the end and is monitoring the situation for us today. Simon, just listening to the tail end of Alex's report there, Kieran McKenna, one name being mentioned, of course, only has just got up to the Premier League with Ipswich Town. De Zerbi, of course, out of a job now at Brighton. Even Thomas Frank at Brentford being mentioned this morning. The fact of the matter is, if they say yes and sign on the dotted line, what are they getting themselves into at this football club under these owners?
An opportunity. This is a very big football club that spends a lot of money. And I think they're very clear in what they expect. You can't debate. You can debate the outcomes, and you can clearly say that this wasn't, the 2 years they've had there haven't gone the way that the perception of a new ownership spending the kind of money that they've spent would have gone. But they've got clarity in their own thinking. Whether people agree with it.
They've got clarity in their own thinking.
Well, they've got clarity in what their
vision is. As to who they don't want.
Well, yeah, and they've got clarity in what they do want.
But Simon, it's a mess, isn't it? Let's face it, it's a mess.
When you say a mess, okay, they finished sixth in the league and they've been to 2 cup semi-finals and one final. And again, I make the point that if they've had someone that could have finished, they might have won a cup this year. A mess is all relative. Is it great? Am I surprised that they've taken Pochettino out? I am and I'm not, because Pochettino is a certain type of manager that will do a certain type of job. They obviously alighted upon him because they thought they could do it, and something has changed. And if something's changed, what do you want? Do you want decisive leadership, or do you want indecisive leadership? Do you want to run with the orthodoxy of you've got to give a guy a period of time because that's what a bunch of people in the media say you should do? You don't operate things this way because that's
what Boehly said last week to the Qatar business conference.
He talked about
patience is the watchword.
Again, I'm rehearsing what I just said a minute ago. We're talking to an audience like the press, and we're talking to an audience like the fan base, which is be patient with the overall picture. Not be patient with the individuals within the confines of it, be patient with the overall project, and we will do what we will do, which is make the decisions that we think are the best decisions to be able to make sure that the £2.5 billion that we spent on buying a football club that no one has ever spent anything like on produces an outcome that we all want, which is a winning Chelsea team. And how we do it is how we do it. Now, what's interesting is when you listen to people talk about what Pochettino's viewing, the briefing in you get is at this moment in time what Pochettino's version of events are about what the outcome was as a result of the meeting. You don't hear Chelsea's briefing in. Chelsea are wishing him well, and ultimately they hope for next season to finish in the top 4. Now, that must mean that Chelsea's takeaway from what they had from Mauricio Pochettino was they weren't getting much confidence from the manager that they were going to finish inside the top 4.
Well, we're hypothesising with that, but in alluding to your point, Jim, about a mess, there is a mess. They've created a mess, a bigger mess than they had before, because the majority, not all, fans are against this decision and have got more dislike and hatred towards the owners now, which is a problem. That is a problem. because it transfers to the players on match day, if all that's going on.
Yeah.
And the other problem they've created in this mess is that whoever they bring in now is under bigger pressure than Poch would have been at the start of the season. Much more. He's under huge pressure to start getting results.
Why?
Because everyone will go, if
under
Poch
pressure, full
finished
stop.
6th and nearly got to a cup final, this guy's got to do better or he's gone next season.
So when you had top managers in there before, like Ancelotti, that have done things and won things and been booted out the door, what's changed? What's the dynamic that's changed from managers that have actually achieved things and won things that actually were shunted out the door by Chelsea under a different ownership model to managers that haven't achieved very much, haven't won anything?
Well, the discontent was less because every time they got rid of a manager, even if they'd won something, the next one come in and won something. So the discontent
they were under
was
pressure
less.
from the get-go to do that, to achieve that. So nothing's changed then.
But Simon, I think Danny's right. It is a mess, whatever way you look at it. Behind the scenes, the owners, a £1 billion spend, they've gone through 4 managers. The players, now I know you'll say the players are the players, and they'll whine, no doubt, until the next guy comes in, and then they'll whine when he goes. But overnight, Nicholas Jackson, love you, coach. This is about Pochettino. Wish we could stay together a bit longer.
So I can learn how to finish. Yeah.
Young Cole Palmer. Gaffer, thank you for everything you've done for me, making my dreams come true. All the best. In the short time that Cole Palmer has been working with Pochettino, he wants to single him out and say, thanks for what you did for me. But the next guy will come in and no doubt will have the same.
Wonderful. And the king is
from
dead.
the players.
And here's what will happen. The king
you
is dead.
Cannot be defending this morning, surely,
I'm
Simon.
not defending.
Boehly and Igbali's performance as owners thus far.
It's not about defending. It's about giving context.
Simon, please tell us it's far from impressive.
No, it's not about defending. It's about giving context. It's about giving balance. Do I think that the 2 years that they've owned this football club has gone well for them? No. Do I think that their recruitment of Graham Potter was advisable? No, I didn't at the time. I said I didn't think it was big enough for the job. Do I think bringing Frank Lampard bringing back in was a disaster? Yes, I do think it was a disaster. Was I impressed by the appointment of Pochettino? Do I think they've overspent? Yeah, of course I do. Do I think it's wonderful? No, I don't. But I'm not going to fall into the trap of saying, well, it's an absolute mess, because I don't think it is.
So what is it? A process?
I think there's an element of that. Yeah, I think when you buy a business, you show me there's someone that's never made a mistake, and I'll show you someone that's never tried anything. So they're in a position where they've gone in there and they've made mistakes, and they've made mistakes with the way that the media characterise them. They've made mistakes with the appointments that they've made. They've spent £1 billion, okay, net 600 million, which is what Arsenal spent. Arsenal spent net 600 million over 5 years. Chelsea has spent net 600 million over 2 years. And they are actually, when you think about it, Danny, despite all of this sort of car crash scenario that we're painting, they actually aren't that far away.
Were you presiding over
side.
a car crash 2 years in at Palace, Simon?
I was presiding over a car crash within 15 minutes of walking to Palace.
No, but I knew you would do that, but be honest with me, mate. 2 years in, where were you with your project?
I was certainly presiding over a car crash in the first season, yeah, because I spent enormous amounts of money and nearly did what happened to Birmingham, which has got relegated with new ownership, bang loads of money, changed managers, and ultimately nearly got relegated. But I don't see Chelsea as a car crash. I see it as a wonderful story for the media to go, look at this. This is fantastic. This is an absolute disaster.
Not just the media. The supporters.
But the supporters 2 years ago nearly didn't have a football club, and football fans bend and breathe. Yeah. If the season starts brightly next season and they get a manager that they like, all of a sudden this backstory will go away.
It's a balance. It is a balance. I think the potential of a car crash is there, depending what they do next. I think that's fair. The group of players they've got are talented, but the obvious thing is to look at the recruitment. I mean, talk about managers getting the sack. I mean, Winstanley and Stewart, the technical director and sporting director, got lots to answer for, because they're the ones who've been recruiting and advising to spend double the money on some of the players they had to. That's the problem, because the balance of the squad is wrong. No one's ever done this. We've said this many times. No one has ever decided on a philosophy to go and spend that much money on only potential.
Yeah.
Nobody. So it's an absolute risk. And those two are in charge of that risk. And at the minute, they failed.
I think so.
But it's not a risk that they wouldn't have decided policy.
Well,
the owner of the business
surely
will decide the policy,
okay.
and his staff will implement it.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.